My sister refused to share our family heirlooms. Those words still sting when I say them out loud. After our parents passed away, everything seemed to fall apart faster than I could process. We were supposed to divide their belongings fairly, the way they had always wanted. Instead, my sister locked everything away in a cabinet at her house and told me I had no claim to anything. At first, I thought it was just grief speaking, that she was clinging to memories too tightly. But as weeks turned into months, it became clear she wasn't just holding on, she was keeping me out. My name is Laura, and I am 38 years old. What should have been a time of mourning turned into a bitter battle. Our family heirlooms weren't just objects, they were the history of generations. Our grandmother's necklace, our father's watch, the silverware set brought from Europe. They carried stories, love, and legacy. When I confronted my sister, she looked me straight in the eye and said, "They're mine. You don't deserve them." Those words shattered something inside me. She wasn't protecting memories, she was erasing me from them. That night, I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at my mother's old recipe book, the only item I had managed to keep. My sister's greed wasn't just about things. It was about control, power, and punishing me for reasons I couldn't yet understand. And though I tried to avoid it, I knew one truth I could no longer ignore. If she wouldn't share willingly, the law would have to decide for her. When I finally confronted my sister face to face, the air between us was heavy enough to choke on. We sat across from each other at her dining table, the locked cabinet standing just a few feet away like a silent witness. "I want to see Mom's necklace," I said firmly. "And Dad's watch. They belong to both of us." Her lips curled into a bitter smile. "No, Laura. They belong to me. I was the one who stayed. I was the one who took care of them while you were off chasing your career. You don't get to swoop back in and claim what's mine." The venom in her words shocked me. "Yours? They weren't yours. They were ours. They're family heirlooms, meant to be shared, passed down." She cut me off with a sharp laugh. "Shared? You think you deserve anything after leaving me to handle everything? You didn't even show up for half the doctor's appointments when Mom was sick. You only came for the funeral, Laura. Don't talk to me about what's fair." Her attack was like a slap. I had been working 2 jobs at the time, trying to keep my own life afloat, but guilt had always lingered. Still, her twisting of the truth was unbearable. "That doesn't give you the right to erase me from this family," I snapped. "I loved them just as much as you did. And I'm not going to let you lock away our history because of your bitterness." Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I thought she might hit me. Instead, she leaned back in her chair, her voice dripping with cruelty. "Try to take them from me, Laura. Just try. You'll regret it." I stood up, my legs trembling with both rage and heartbreak. The sister I had once trusted more than anyone was now my enemy. And as I left her house that night, I realized something that made my chest ache. This wasn't just about heirlooms anymore. This was war. A week later, I was sorting through an old box of paperwork in my attic when I stumbled across a yellowed envelope marked Last Will and Testament. My hands froze as I pulled it out, my heart thudding against my ribs. I had assumed the original was long gone, buried in legal files or locked away somewhere I couldn't reach. But here it was, my parents' words, their intentions, written in black and white. I sat on the floor, legs crossed, and carefully unfolded the pages. My eyes scanned the lines, and there it was, a clear statement that all family possessions, jewelry, watches, silverware, and personal effects were to be divided equally between their 2 daughters, not given to the one who stayed. Not handed to the one who thinks she deserves more. Equally, for a moment I couldn't breathe. The vindication hit me like a wave, followed immediately by fury. My sister knew this. She had to. There was no way she could have forgotten the will, which meant she had been deliberately lying to me, twisting the truth to make me feel guilty, to make me back down. I slammed the papers shut, my hands shaking. I felt both relieved and betrayed. Relieved because I finally had proof that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't asking for something that wasn't mine. Betrayed because my own sister had looked me in the eye and denied me what she knew I had a right to. That night, I called her. My voice was cold as ice. "I found the will. It says everything is to be divided equally. You lied to me. There was a long pause, then her voice, dripping with false innocence. Maybe you read it wrong. I didn't, I snapped. I'll give you one more chance to do the right thing. If you don't, the next conversation we have will be in front of a judge. She laughed bitterly. Go ahead, Laura. Take me to court. See if that makes you feel like part of this family again. And with that, she hung up. I stared at the silent phone in my hand, fury rising in my chest. I had been pushed into a corner, and now there was no turning back. The next step was clear. I needed a lawyer. The following morning, I walked into a law office downtown, clutching the will in my bag like it was both a weapon and a shield. The waiting room smelled faintly of coffee and old paper, and my nerves buzzed as though I was about to confess to a crime. When I finally sat across from Attorney Collins, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a calm, steady voice, I felt my shoulders drop a little. She spread the papers on her desk, reading them carefully. After a few minutes, she looked up. You have a strong case, she said simply. Your parents were very clear, equal division. If your sister refuses to comply, the court can force her hand. Legally, those heirlooms are half yours. Relief washed over me, but it was quickly replaced by dread. So, if I go forward, this will become official? A public case. Collins nodded. Yes. It's not unusual for family disputes to reach this stage. But you should know, it rarely ends with reconciliation. Court makes winners and losers. And when it's family, the scars run deep. Her words sank into me like stones. I had come here wanting validation, proof that I wasn't crazy. But hearing it laid out so bluntly made me realize the cost. Taking my sister to court would mean crossing a line we could never uncross. I swallowed hard. What if I don't want to destroy what little is left of our relationship? Collins leaned back, her gaze unwavering. Then you give up your rights. Those are your only choices. Keep the peace and lose your share, or fight for what's legally yours and accept the fallout. I sat there in silence, my pulse loud in my ears. I thought of my mother's necklace, my father's watch, their lives carried in objects I might never see again. And I thought of my sister's smirk, the way she dared me to take her to court, convinced I wouldn't have the courage. Finally, I whispered, "Draw up the papers." For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of power return to me. If my sister wanted war, then war was what she would get. Just when I thought my sister's selfishness couldn't cut any deeper, I learned the truth that nearly broke me. It was a cousin who called me one evening, her voice hesitant. "Laura, I thought you should know. I saw your sister at an antiques dealer last week. She sold something. A men's watch. Looked expensive, old. Didn't that used to be your dad's?" My heart stopped. Dad's watch. The one he wore every single day of his life, even in the hospital. The one he promised would one day pass down to both of us. I thanked my cousin, hung up the phone, and sat frozen in my chair, staring at the wall until my eyes blurred. A mix of rage and grief swirled in my chest. She hadn't just hoarded the heirlooms, she had profited from them, stripping them of their meaning, turning pieces of our family into cash. The next day, I stormed over to her house. She opened the door with her usual smug expression, but it faltered when she saw my face. "You sold Dad's watch," I said, my voice trembling. For a moment, she didn't answer. Then she shrugged. "It was mine to sell. I needed the money." "Yours?" I snapped, my hands shaking. "It wasn't yours. It wasn't mine. It was ours. That watch was the one thing Dad swore would stay in the family." "How could you do that?" Her eyes narrowed, her tone icy. "Don't act so righteous. You wouldn't understand. You didn't carry the weight I did while they were alive. You don't get to judge me." Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. This isn't about weight or sacrifice, or who was there more. This is about respect for Mom, for Dad, for their memory. And you've spit on all of it. She folded her arms. "If you're that upset, then take me to court. Isn't that what you've been planning?" In that moment, something inside me hardened. Any hope of reconciliation vanished. This wasn't about family anymore, it was about justice. And I knew then, without a shred of doubt, that the courtroom was where this fight would end. 2 days later, I walked back into Attorney Collins' office with fire in my veins. I slammed the will down on her desk, along with a note I had written detailing how my sister had already sold our father's watch. Collins looked at me over the rim of her glasses, calm but sharp. "I take it you're ready to move forward." I nodded without hesitation. "File the case. I don't care how long it takes." She's crossed the line. That afternoon, the official paperwork was drafted. Laura versus Margaret, petition for equal division of estate assets. Seeing my sister's name on the documents, printed in bold letters beneath mine, sent a shiver down my spine. This wasn't just family drama anymore. It was legal war. When the court notice was delivered to her door, I wasn't there to see it, but I heard about it quickly enough. My phone lit up that night with her furious call. "How dare you drag me into court?" she screamed. "Do you know how humiliating this is? Do you know what people will say about me?" I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, my voice steady though my heart raced. "People will say the truth, that you tried to steal what wasn't yours." "You'll regret this, Laura," she hissed. "You've just declared war." "I didn't declare war," I shot back. "You did, the moment you locked me out and sold Dad's watch. I'm just fighting back." She hung up without another word, and the silence afterward rang louder than her shouting. I sat there staring at the court papers, my pulse pounding, knowing I had just set something irreversible in motion. The date was set. We were going to face each other in a courtroom. Sister against sister. Blood against blood. And I knew, whatever happened next, our family would never be the same again. The courthouse smelled of polished wood and old air, the kind of place where history lingered in every corner. I sat at the plaintiff's table, hands clenched so tightly my knuckles turned white. Across from me, my sister sat like a stone statue, her arms folded, her lips pursed in defiance. The judge entered, and the bailiff called the room to order.
My heart hammered in my chest.
This was it. Attorney Collins rose first, her voice steady and commanding. "Your Honor, this case is straightforward. The will left by our client's parents states clearly that all heirlooms and personal property are to be divided equally between both daughters. Yet my client's sister has not only refused to comply, but has also sold items for profit without consent." The judge's eyes narrowed slightly as Collins laid the will before him. He adjusted his glasses, reading silently. Then his gaze shifted to my sister. "How do you respond to this?" My sister's lawyer, a man who looked more nervous than confident, stood up and began fumbling. "Your Honor, while the will does state equal division, it should be noted that my client was the primary caregiver. She sacrificed years of her life for her parents, while her sister—" The judge cut him off with a wave of his hand. "We are not here to measure sacrifices. We are here to uphold the law and the written word of the deceased." My sister shot me a glare sharp enough to slice through glass. Then she stood, her voice trembling with rage. "She doesn't deserve anything. She abandoned us. She never cared about them like I did. Why should she get to walk in after all this time and take half of everything?" Her outburst echoed through the courtroom. I rose slowly, my knees shaking but my voice strong. "I didn't abandon them. I loved them just as much as you did. But love isn't measured in hours or in proximity. It's measured in respect. And you disrespected them the moment you sold Dad's watch like it was nothing but metal." Gasps rippled through the room. The judge raised his hand for silence, his expression grave. For the first time, my sister's mask cracked. Her lawyer sat down heavily. Realizing there was no excuse left to give, I sank back into my seat, my heart racing, knowing that the truth was finally out in the open, and now, all that was left was the verdict. The courtroom was silent as the judge shuffled through the documents one last time. My palms were slick with sweat, my pulse echoing in my ears like a drum. Across the room, my sister stared at the floor, her jaw clenched so tight I thought it might break. Finally, the judge spoke. His voice was calm, deliberate, every word landing like a gavel strike. "This court has reviewed the will and the evidence presented. It is undeniable that the parents' wishes were clear. All heirlooms and personal belongings are to be divided equally between both daughters. The defendant's refusal to comply, coupled with the sale of items without consent, is in direct violation of that will. I held my breath as he continued. Therefore, it is the judgment of this court that the heirlooms be formally catalogued and divided equally. Any items already sold must be compensated at fair market value to the plaintiff. Enforcement will be carried out under court supervision, if necessary. The gavel struck once, sharp and final. This case is closed. The sound reverberated through my chest, a mix of relief and sorrow colliding all at once. I had won. Justice was on my side, but before I could even process the victory, my sister shot to her feet. Her face was red, her voice shaking with fury. This isn't fair. She doesn't deserve a damn thing. You're all against me. The bailiff stepped forward, motioning her back, but her words kept pouring out, venomous and raw. You think you've won, Laura?
Fine.
Take your half. Take it all. But you'll never have me as a sister again. The judge banged the gavel again. Order. But her words hung in the air long after she stormed out of the courtroom, slamming the heavy doors behind her. I sat frozen in my chair, my victory suddenly tasting bitter. The heirlooms would be mine, yes. But the cost was clear. I had lost my sister forever. A month later, I found myself in a quiet office downtown, sitting across from a court-appointed mediator. Spread out on the table were the pieces of my family's history: our grandmother's necklace, my mother's earrings, the silverware polished to a soft shine, and the few items my sister hadn't already sold. Each piece was tagged, cataloged, and assigned a value. It felt cold, clinical, like our lives had been reduced to inventory in an auction. That I reached for Dad's cufflinks, and a lump formed in my throat. They were small, almost ordinary to anyone else, but I remembered how he used to let me play with them when I was little, slipping them through my fingers as he told stories about his first job. The mediator's voice broke through my thoughts. Miss Laura, these items are now legally yours. Any missing items will be compensated by your sister, as the court ruled. I nodded, my hands trembling as I gathered them into a small box. My sister wasn't there. She had refused to attend. Instead, her lawyer sent a letter, dripping with bitterness, claiming she wanted nothing more to do with this circus. As I signed the final papers, a hollow ache spread through me. I had fought for this moment, for the justice my parents had promised. Yet sitting there with a box of heirlooms in front of me, I felt no triumph. I had gained jewelry, silver, memories in physical form, but I had lost a bond that could never be replaced. The sister who once held my hand during storms, who whispered secrets in the dark, was gone. Walking out of that office, the autumn wind sharp against my face, I realized something painful. Heirlooms can be divided, but family cannot. And once it breaks, no court in the world can piece it back together. The heirlooms are with me now, resting in a small chest at the foot of my bed. Sometimes, late at night, I take them out one by one: my grandmother's necklace, my father's cufflinks, my mother's earrings, and I remember the people they belonged to, the laughter and the stories attached to them. They are pieces of my past, fragments of love I refuse to let slip away, but every time I hold them, there's a shadow that lingers. Because I didn't just lose my sister to greed, I lost her to pride, to anger, to choices that neither of us can take back. The court gave me what was legally mine, but it couldn't give me back a family that no longer exists, and yet, I have no regrets. I fought for what was right. I honored my parents' will, even when my sister tried to erase me from it. I learned the hard way that family isn't just about blood, it's about respect. Without that, even the strongest bond can crumble into dust. So if you've listened all the way to the end, thank you. My advice is simple. Stand up for yourself, even when it hurts. Protect your dignity, because once it's gone, no one will hand it back to you. And if my story spoke to you in any way, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and share your thoughts. Because sometimes, the only way we heal from broken families is by finding new ones in the people who listen, understand, and remind us we're not alone.